In this video, we're going to give you a general guide to the interface used in the Vectric software programs and how to navigate your way around it. Although there are some differences between the different products, depending what features are available within them and so how many icons they have, essentially the way each of them works and the way the interface works is pretty much consistent throughout. So we're just going to use a single version of one of the products here to show you the different features that we'd like to cover. When you start any of the products, you'll see a panel on the left hand side of the interface, as you can see here, that has the choice to create a new file, open an existing file, or to access the 4 most recently opened files that you've been working with in that program. Typically what you're going to do is click to create a new file if you're starting from scratch, or if you want to work on something you've been working on before, you click on open an existing file. When we click on create a new file, we're presented with a screen where we can specify our job size and dimensions, thickness of the material, and various parameters for how we want the part to be set up in relation to things like the X, Y and Z0 on the machine. For the 3D programs, we also get to choose the resolution that we're going to work at. If we were starting to create a new part, I would just hit OK. In this case, I'm going to hit cancel because what I want to do is open an existing file. I'm just going to click on one of my recently opened files in order to bring that in here, and this will help me to demonstrate some of the different aspects of the interface as we work through the tutorial. When you start a new job or you open an existing file, by default you'll see what you can see on the screen here, where we've got our design tab on the left, we have our 2D view visible in the main window, and the other thing we have access to from this view and always throughout the software are the drop down menus at the top here. Let's take a look at a few of these different areas. First, the drop down menus right at the top are very familiar to most Windows users. If we click on any of these, you'll see a menu that cascades down from the top relevant to the word that's been clicked on. Sometimes within these you'll see a side arrow like we've got here, and if we hover over that with the mouse we'll see a sub-menu that's available with even more choices. So these are all fairly self-explanatory, and you'll see them accessed from time to time in some of the different videos. The majority of the time though, how you're going to access the functions of the software are through what we refer to as tabs and the icons that appear on them. On the left you can currently see the drawing tab. This goes from the top of the screen to the bottom, and you can see it highlighted here in orange, showing me that that's the tab that I've got selected. Each tab can be selected just by clicking on it in order to pick that particular tab and the information or functions that it contains. Every single one of the programs has both a layers tab and a drawing tab for working with the 2D data. The programs that support 3D models also have a modeling tab and a clip art tab that you can see here as well. In addition, all the programs have a toolpaths tab, which by default is over on the right of the screen. If I just hover over that, you can see that come out there, and we'll come back to this later in the video. The functions in the software are accessed through what we refer to as icons, which are these little pictures that you can see on the tab here. If I hover over these, you'll see them highlighted by a square, and I'll get a little box with some text in it, which is what we refer to as a tooltip, and this actually tells me the name of that particular function, which is very useful when you're first learning the program. To access any of these, I just click on them with the mouse and that will open the function itself, allowing me to work with it. Let's just go ahead and close that there. I don't want to create any new data at the moment. Another useful thing on the drawing tab is the fact that it shows me the job dimensions here down the bottom. That'll only display if you have a large enough monitor for the interface to fit that on. Within the default layout of the program, the tabs on the left here are what you'd think of typically as the ones being used for the design process. So as I say, we have the drawing tab and the layers for organising our 2D data, and then if you're working with 3D we have the ability to manipulate the 3D models and also bring in the clip art entities from your library of 3D models. Once you finish working with the design, the next stage is to head over to the toolpath tab. There are a couple of different ways to do that. You saw earlier that I can just move the mouse over this area on the right and that will pop out, and if I want to fix that in place I can click on the little pin icon here and that will pin the toolpath tab out for me. So now the design tabs and the toolpath tab are both accessible at the same time. If I just click on the pin again, it will unpin it and it will minimize that back over to the right hand side. Often though, to maximize the space that you've got for working within, you probably want to minimize the drawing and the design tab when you go over to the toolpaths. There are again a couple of ways to do this. One is to click on the icon here to switch to the toolpaths tab. When I do that, the drawing and other design tabs will be minimized on the left and the toolpath tab will be maximized on the right. Note here on the left how I have the drawing tab. I can hover over that to pop it out. If we just move off that, it'll minimize again. And also I have the other tabs below that here that I can click on as well in order to access, even though those tabs currently are not pinned into place. Another very quick way to move between the design tabs and the toolpaths tab is to use the shortcut keys on the keyboard. For that, you're going to use F11 to go over to the design tab and F12 to go over to the toolpaths tab. So at the moment I have the toolpaths tab open, so if I hit F11 on the keyboard, that will maximize my design tab again and minimize my toolpath tab. And while the design tab is open, I can hit F12, which will do the opposite. That'll maximize the toolpaths tab and minimize the design tab. And again, to reiterate, it is possible for me to hover over this and to click on the pin in order to pin out both of those. If I have a large enough screen, I may very well want to work with the design tab open and the toolpaths tab open at the same time. The middle part of the interface is where we actually create and edit our design. This is split into what we call a 2D view and a 3D view. At the moment we can see the 2D view, which is showing the vectors for my part. If I come up the top here, I can click where it says 3D view in order to go over into a 3D environment. So you can see I can rotate this square around that we've got representing our material at the moment, but we don't have any other 3D entities in here. In all of the programs, this is where we can view the toolpaths if I switch them on here in 3D, and also where we can preview the toolpaths as well. If I just preview all the toolpaths there, you can see I get a virtual 3D representation of what the part's going to look like that I can rotate around. We'll come back in a moment and look in more detail at this and how we can manipulate the view. In addition, if we're working with one of the programs that supports the ability to use 3D components, this is where we'd be able to see our dimensional model taking shape. Here I'm just going to reset the preview for the moment, close the preview toolpaths form, and again we'll come back to this in a second. Let's come back up here and click to go into the 2D view again. Now within the 2D view I've got various ways that I can manipulate how I see the data in here. At the moment you can see this has got slightly off center because we were opening and closing the tabs. There's a couple of ways that I could center this again. I could use a scroll bar at the bottom here, which I can move to push this side to side or top to bottom with the one on the right here. Or we can use the icons over on the left here. First we have the pan view icon. If I click on that, then you'll see the arrow changes and to this sort of four-way arrow that I can now click and drag in order to move the job around. So we can move that into different areas of the screen there. The next one is the ability to zoom to a particular box. So if I click on that, I can get this magnifying glass icon and I can click and drag holding the mouse key down and let go in order to zoom in on a particular area. If I want to zoom out again, then I can click on the icon here to zoom to fit, which will just fit my job into the workspace. And note that that hasn't changed the mode I'm in. I've still got this magnifying glass on the screen here, so I've still got the ability to zoom into another area there and then zoom back out, zoom to fit. When I want to exit out of any of these modes, I will just come down and click on the arrow here to go back into what we refer to as selection mode. This is the standard mode where I can pick objects on the screen. The other icon under 2D view control is zoom selected. To use this, I need to pick something from the 2D view that is the area that I want to zoom in on. So let's say for instance that we wanted to look at these boxes that we've got on the middle part here. I can select those, I can click zoom selected and the software will just zoom in on those selected objects. Again, we can just zoom to fit to go back out again. There is a handy shortcut key for zoom to fit, and that is the F key on the keyboard. So again, if we've zoomed in on something I can hit F on the keyboard and that will just zoom me back out again so that the whole job is fitting within it. Now another way that I've got zooming into the 2D view is to put the cursor where I would like to zoom in and use the mouse wheel. So if I wanted to zoom in where the arrow is at the moment, I just put that there and roll the mouse wheel away from me or roll the mouse wheel back towards myself there. So that's another nice way to zoom in and out of your 2D view. Again, if I hit F on the keyboard, it'll just put that back into my full view fitting within the window. Another way to access certain functions in the software is through the context-sensitive menu. This is accessed through the right mouse key and it will vary depending on the state of your part and what you have selected at a particular time. If I just right mouse click within the white area here, you can see the menu that I get and the variety of choices that are on there. What we mean by context sensitive is the fact that if I select an object and go into what we call node editing mode, and for instance hover over one of the nodes here and right mouse click, now I get a completely different menu that's particular to the object that I was hovering over and the current state I'm in the node editing. A number of these, as we look at them here, also have these letters next to them as well, and that means I can access them without going into the context sensitive menu itself, just by using the letter in that same situation. So there, D is the shortcut key to delete a point. So if I just click to deselect that, reselect it there, hover over that area and hit D on the keyboard, then that deletes that point for me. So it's the same as me having gone over that area, right mouse clicked and chosen from the context sensitive menu. I'm just going to undo that, so we'll click on the undo icon there. I could also have hit the shortcut key Control Z on the keyboard to undo a function as well. To go out of the node editing here, I can come over and click on selection mode again, or I can hit escape on the keyboard in order to go back to the standard selection mode there. We saw earlier how we can go between the 2D and 3D view by clicking on the tabs at the top here. In addition, there are shortcut keys, which is F2 and F3, to make each of these more prominent. So F3 will make the 3D view prominent, F2 will make the 2D view prominent, and so you can use those to easily toggle back and forward between the views. In some situations it can be beneficial to see both views at once, both the 2D and the 3D view. There are two ways to do this, which may depend on the shape of your part. If we look at the icons here, I can tile the windows, and this first one will tile the windows vertically, so I get 2D view on the left, 3D view on the right. The other icon here will tile the windows horizontally, so I get 2D view at the top, 3D view at the bottom. Again, there are shortcut keys for these. Page up on the keyboard will tile them vertically, and page down will tile them horizontally. This can be quite a nice view if your screen is large enough to allow you to see enough detail in both the 2D and 3D view when displaying them simultaneously. So let's just come down and maximize our 3D view again. We'll go ahead and just preview all our toolpaths once more, so we've got something a little bit more interesting to manipulate in here. Let's just close that for a moment there. So here we can see our 3D object, and there are various things that I can do to navigate around within the view here the same way that we did in the 2D view. If I want to rotate the view, I just click with the left mouse button and move the mouse around, and that will allow me to rotate the part there in order to see it from different angles. To zoom in, I just hold the right mouse key down on the mouse and push the mouse away from me. To zoom out, I just keep holding the right mouse key down and pull the mouse towards me. So zoom in, let go, and you'll see the view refresh there, and I can take a closer look at the part. Again, left mouse key if I want to rotate that around. Another way to zoom in and out, if your mouse has a wheel, is to just roll the wheel towards you to zoom out, roll the wheel away from you to zoom in. At any stage I can hit the F key like I could in the 2D view to fit this back in here. So if I zoom in there and hit F, you can see it just fits the view back into the window. As well as that, I have some icons at the top here as well. This is zoom to fit, same way that the F shortcut key is. I have an ISO view here which will spin the part into an angled view. I can view down Z, the X-axis or the Y-axis. So clicking there will take me back to the angled view, the ISO view. To move the objects in the 3D view, left to right or up and down on the screen, then I can use the pan command, which I access by holding both the left and the right mouse key down at the same time. So if I do that now and move the mouse, you can see how that's going to allow me to move that around the screen there. This is particularly useful when I want to zoom in on a particular area of the job. In the 3D view, the software zooms in on the center of the screen, so I need to use the pan command in order to move the area I'd like to look at into the center. So if I come down here, click both the left and the right mouse key, move that into the center there, and then either use the mouse wheel or the right mouse key and move that in. Again, hold down the left if I want to pan that around, and I can zoom right in to interrogate any part of the 3D view that I want to. Let's just click back on the ISO view there to get back to the angled view. Now it's worth practicing with these functions both in the 2D and 3D view to help you more easily manipulate the objects in the software and see the parts of them that you need to see as you're creating your design. So we've had a good look there at the standard interface for the program and working our way around it using the tabs, the icons, the 2D and the 3D view. It's possible to add a little more customization if you want to your interface, and typically we'd only recommend you doing this after you've become quite comfortable with the standard layout. The way this works is to actually allow you to tear off the tabs and position them separately if you want on your screen. To do this, we just go over one of the tabs here, click on the name at the top and just drag that off, and that will create a separate form here. You can see that's just floating around, and I can move that around in the interface if I want. I could even position that on a second monitor if I desired. It's possible to not only do that with the drawing tab, but even individually with the modeling tab to drag that off there, and any of the other tabs you want to as well, including the toolpaths tab too. At any stage I can click and drag that back down here to add it back in or move it around. And the same here, if we go back with the drawing tab, I can click back over on the edge here in order to snap that back into place on the side. As I say, we'd really only recommend starting to move these tabs around once you're comfortable with the standard layout, otherwise it'll make it harder to follow the different tutorial videos and the documentation. If you have configured your tabs in a certain way on your monitors that is the way you always want to work, then it's possible to save that layout. If you go up to Edit and Options, you can see at the top here we have the ability to specify that we save the tab layout, the dialog layout and the view layouts as well. So if you've got your 2D and 3D view perhaps tiled in a certain way over two different monitors, then that should save the layout if you click on those and use the drop down arrow to change the option to yes. Let's go ahead and just hit OK there. So that concludes the brief overview of the interface here. We haven't gone into any detail on the specifics of different icons or how to work with the software itself, because that's covered in all the other tutorial videos. Here we just wanted to give you a quick guide to getting your way around, finding the different tabs and the icons and manipulating the 2D and 3D view. Thanks for watching.